If you play fantasy football, this video is for you because today we are breaking down these 6 players you should try and trade away off your team right now while you still can. Because these are guys who have been maybe producing lately, but I don't see that continuing. You might as well cash out as high as you possibly can. And let's talk about a running back who's probably coming off of his best game of the year, definitely from a usage and production standpoint, that combination, right? We saw recently, this is Rhamondre Stevenson for those of you on the audio podcast. We saw recently a couple of weeks ago, Antonio Gibson went down with injury. And the question was, how is the backfield going to change? Well, since then, it's basically been mostly the Rhamondre Stevenson show. However, he hasn't been that productive in those 2 or so weeks until this past week in week 7. Because as you can see right here, Rhamondre had a commanding role. 18 carries, 88 yards, averaging about 5 yards per carry in this game. He had a couple of receptions compared to Trevion Henderson, who had just 2 carries. Terrell Jennings had 5 carries. Now you might be saying, oh my God, who's Terrell Jennings? He's an undrafted, former undrafted free agent from like Florida A&M. It's a satellite of Texas A&M. For the most part, those 5 carries were on like the final drive when it was a blowout and they were just ending the game. Now this was the perfect scenario for Rhamondre Stevenson because the Patriots played with a lead. Mike Vrabel went back against his former team. He got revenge. They won by 3 scores, 31-13 in this game. And outside of Tennessee leading 10-3 early, it was basically the Patriots from there on out. They jumped up to a 27 or a 2-score lead in the third quarter. They didn't look back. And they were also facing a Tennessee Titans team that allows the 4th most rushing yards per game so far this season, 140 rushing yards per game. So it's sort of like the perfect scenario for Rhamondre Stevenson. He came into the game as a favorite. This Patriots offense has been looking awesome, and they played with a lead against a bad overall defense. But let's give Rhamondre some credit because this team obviously trusts him. Despite all of the fumbles, they still trust him. In this game, he saw basically his best usage of the year, 77% of the snaps. No other Patriots running back saw over 15%, so this was like a full-on workhorse role for Rhamondre. 69% of the rush attempts, 69% of the routes run. In games, if he sees this type of usage, 70% of the backfield carries, and in games where the Patriots aren't leading by like 2 or 3 scores, he's definitely going to see a couple more targets as well. So this is all very good for Rhamondre, again, on an offense that should be projected for 24 to 27 points a week moving forward. But my problem is, you might as well see what you can get for him if there's a team, especially with the 6 teams on bye this specific week, that could be desperate in your league. You look at the past 2 years for Rhamondre, 12 fantasy points per game, 12 fantasy points per game outside of the top 24 running backs. So he's basically been an RB3 the last couple of seasons. So this year, obviously, he hasn't been playing as well. He is coming off of his best game in a while, but you're talking about a guy who basically, for the most part, and he's getting older now over these last couple of years, has been averaging less than 4 yards per carry on average. So it's not like he's an overly efficient running back. He's not any type of amazing running back. He's only getting older. And for the most part, you know what to expect. Somewhere around like the RB25 finish on a weekly basis, which isn't terrible. That is a flex option for you, which is helpful while the bye weeks are here, but you might as well try and upgrade it while you can and if you can, because he's coming off of what could definitely go down as his best performance of the season, as nearly 20 fantasy points in PPR formats this past week. But we know what you were going to expect more weeks than not from him. Probably 12 to 15 carries of less than efficiency, and then you're going, or not that much efficiency, and you're going to hope for Rhamondre to go out there and catch some passes. So look at some of these deals. This is the perfect deal. Quentin Johnston off of a down game, perfect buy low candidate for a guy coming off of a hamstring injury. Go get Quentin Johnston instead of Rhamondre Stevenson. Tyler Warren was a deal that happened as of I'm recording this today, the 22nd. Tyler Warren, yeah, I want him way more than Rhamondre Stevenson. We scroll down a little bit more. Some of these deals are kind of 1-for-1s. I'll take T. Higgins over Rhamondre as well. So again, we can acknowledge that the role for Rhamondre Stevenson is getting better. I'm not even sure. I don't think that that's fluky. I don't see other running backs like the rookie Trevion Henderson getting involved anytime soon, but we could also say like, hey, he's probably not going to average 20 points a week. Let's try and see if there's an offer out there while we can, and taking advantage of the bye weeks where some teams in your league might be panicking for a flex spot, meaning that they might trade you somebody on their team who's going to be on bye for Rhamondre and you might get a steal. Next up, this one is going to cause some problems and I already know it. Quinshon Judkins. I think this is somebody who is the perfect sell high candidate right now after he just dropped a massive fantasy score of easily over 20 fantasy points, because let's get it right here. 25 carries, 84 yards, wasn't efficient, 3.5 yards per carry, though he did have a lot of short fields to start on because, I mean, left and right in this game. Tua was throwing interceptions and giving the Browns a short field, so it was kind of hard to break off big runs. He had an explosive play of 46 yards and obviously the 3 touchdowns in this game. Everything went perfect for Quinshon Judkins in this game. The Browns came into this one as favorites and they were facing the Miami Dolphins, who if you know anything about the Miami Dolphins lately, not a good football team, not a good offense, not a good defense. In fact, the Dolphins allow the most rushing yards per game, over 159 rushing yards per game. They allow the 3rd most rushing touchdowns this year. They cannot stop the run by any means, and basically when Cleveland realized, hey, the best best player on our team right now is our rookie second-round running back, Quinshon Judkins, and this defense can't stop our best player. Let's keep giving him the ball. And when you jump up to a pretty big lead, especially this type of lead, 31-6, right? 31-6 is insane. All it called for was short fields for Cleveland to just keep running the ball, keep giving it to Judkins, and for him to keep scoring touchdowns in a game where basically nobody else was doing anything. But let me just remind you, 1 week earlier, Judkins had the opposite game script. His team fell behind in a game against the Pittsburgh Steelers by multiple scores. It was early and often. They were down at halftime, 9-3, and they didn't look back. The Steelers ended up winning by multiple scores. Judkins, for most of the second half, was on the bench, not because of his play, because of his skill set. 12 carries, 36 yards. He's not a pass-catching running back. Instead, Jerome Ford came on the field more, caught 5 balls. Dylan Sampson, the fellow rookie, came on the field more and caught 2 balls. So recency bias is going to tell you like, oh my God, Quinshon Judkins, 3 touchdowns. He's so amazing. It was the best matchup any running back has had on the entire season against Miami Dolphins. Just look a week prior. This Browns offense is still atrocious. The Browns offense ranks 30th in points per game and 30th in yards per game. More weeks than not, they're probably going to be trailing in games, which doesn't help Judkins because he does not catch passes. So again, I think this is a very talented running back. I think if we redrafted today, he would be a 4th round pick, but off of a 3 touchdown game and the fact that most of the games this year he's been highly productive, I think you could probably get a better pick, especially maybe somebody who's on a bye week, like Davante Adams. Davante's going on his bye. I would much rather have Davante than Judkins rest of season. Saquon Barkley, who everybody's down on, this deal just happened within the past 10 hours. This deal was actually in the Flock League right here, the league that's, we have our second channel. If you're not familiar, check out the Flock League. Quinshon Judkins for Cam Scadaboo. That's kind of like a net neutral deal overall. Look at this one right here. This is the perfect one. I would rather have Rome Odunze. This deal also happened in the Flock League. Rome Odunze I'd rather have over Quinshon Judkins. Yes, Judkins was traded twice in a day in that league. Yes. Rome Odunze, gimme, who's a 2nd round pick if we redrafted today in my top 150 rest of season rankings. Check those out, by the way, in the Fantasy Blueprint. Over 10,000 people are using them. Link in the description or at jointheblueprint.com. How about that plug on the fly? But I'd rather have the 2nd round value in Rome Odunze if we redrafted today compared to probably Judkins is like a 4th round pick. Now, before we get into the next player in this video, I've got something great to share with you. I've teamed up with DraftKings Pick 6, the official daily fantasy sports partner of the NFL, where your game day instincts can turn into real payouts fast. Okay, so here's exactly how you could take advantage. Just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats, from breakout rookies to elite quarterbacks, and watch every snap get way more interesting. Now, the better your calls, the bigger the payouts. There's no gimmicks, no confusing rules, just you making your reads, and if they hit, well, you could start to stack up some wins real fast. And here's the best part. Right now, new DraftKings Pick 6 customers can get $50 in bonus picks when you play just $5 on your first pick set. So all you have to do now is download the DraftKings Pick 6 app and use code SAL to get in on the action today. In partnership with DraftKings Pick 6, the crown is yours. And one more thing, DraftKings Pick 6 for Thursday Night Football's game, if it has not already started by the time you're watching this, they have a free play right now of Justin Herbert of over a half a passing yard, meaning if he throws for 1 yard, you win that leg of the entry right there. So you can check that out right now on DraftKings Pick 6. Let's get back into the video now with the next player we're going to be talking about, Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen is somebody who just had a vintage Keenan Allen game, getting back with Justin Herbert, who, if you remember, I don't know, 2-3 years ago when these guys teamed up in Herbert's rookie year during that COVID pandemic season, Keenan Allen was amazing. I mean, he was kind of in his prime back then, and he was amazing. We just saw that again this past weekend. Because Keenan Allen went out there, led the team with 11 catches, led the team with 119 yards, had a bunch of targets, scored a touchdown in this game for like the 4th time this year. Keenan Allen has looked, really, for the most part, for a lot of the games this year, majority of his games, he's looked kind of unstoppable out there, especially when he gets into the red zone with Justin Herbert. But this was the perfect game script, right? It was the absolute perfect game script where Justin Herbert came out here. They trailed by multiple scores in the second half. They got down, I think, 31-10. Herbert had to throw 55 times, career high 420 yards. He was just chucking the ball left and right. And it also helps, at least for Quentin Allen's sake, that Quentin Johnston, his wide receiver, who's really been the number 1 receiver when healthy on this team, was coming back from a hamstring and was clearly limited if you just kind of watched his film and even his usage. But when you start to look at the game logs, and this is what you can pitch to your league mates, or maybe they'll just do naturally when you bring up Keenan Allen as a trade candidate, week 1, 20 fantasy points, 17 week 2, 19 week 3, scoring a touchdown and having 60 plus yards in all those games. Then he went quiet though these next couple of weeks. As, by the way, during these last few weeks, Ladd McConkey's got more involved. The rookie Oronde Gadsden's got more involved. And because of that, Keenan Allen, as he gets older and later into the season, slowed down a little bit. Just 37 scoreless, 58 scoreless, 27 scoreless yards before breaking out in this game where basically the entire second half, the Colts were playing somewhat softer coverages, maybe not prevent defense, but softer coverages, and wide open guys like Keenan Allen, middle of the field, finding the zone coverage. Keenan Allen is good at that as a veteran, a savvy route runner. He was able to get open and put up a big game. But I think there's a real world where if we look at these past 3 games before that of like 8 points, 11 11 points, 7 points, especially now with Ladd McConkey more involved, Quentin Johnson getting healthier, and the rookie Oronde Gadsden coming off of a massive 160-yard game. There's a real world where Keenan Allen is the guy getting squeezed out more weeks than not. Or at least he's squeezed out enough by these other receivers and tight ends on the team to maybe not just see 11 catches for 100 plus yards. Like, it's the perfect time to at least gauge interest on Keenan Allen. Look at some of these deals. DeAndre Swift, the Bears run offense looked amazing last week, and I think that could continue. I'd rather have Swift. George Kittle off of a game where he returned from a bad hamstring injury and the 49ers were just hell-bent on running the ball because it was working against the Falcons. Kittle had 0 catches on 2 targets. I'd rather have Kittle. I'd rather have George Pickens in a game where he still looked good for 6 targets and 80 yards despite CeeDee Lamb returning. These are all deals that have happened within the past 24 hours. I'd rather even have Jaylen Warren, who went back to being a workhorse after 1 week off returning from an injury. So those are some of the deals you can get done right now for Keenan Allen, and I think you should look into them. Now let's get into this next player. And that player's name is Isaiah Pacheco. Now, this is maybe not one where you're going to have the ability to fully sell high on a guy, but I think just based on, especially if you're in a league where people pay attention to like, oh, the snaps, the routes run, they're watching these types of videos and looking at Twitter and whatever, listening to podcasts, they might think that Isaiah Pacheco's role is on the rise, and they wouldn't be wrong there. Pacheco this past week in basically just like 3 quarters of play had 15 carries for 57 yards. He scored a touchdown as well. He also added a reception in this game. So his usage looked pretty good. As you can see from Cook the Books right here over on Twitter, he says, does Isaiah Pacheco have his old rollback? He saw a season high 77% of the snaps last week. He had all 4 red zone rush attempts, which went for, which is the most he's seen since September 15th, week 2 last year before he got injured. So this is a guy who his role looks awesome. He had a bad injury last year. He returned this year. It seemed like he was in a mixed backfield with Kareem Hunt. This past week, though, Kareem Hunt banged up his ankle. We'll see how significant that is, which led to Isaiah Pacheco for the 2nd straight week seeing strong usage. But it should be called out that he was facing a Raiders defense that looks terrible. The Chiefs got up 31-0, although the Chiefs offense, especially with Rashee Rice back, looks amazing right now. They'll probably lead by multiple scores or at least be leading and have positive to neutral game scripts in most of their games. So I'm not trying to sell off Isaiah Pacheco for nothing right now, but I do think this past game was skewed by the easy matchup and the fact that Kareem Hunt got banged up, which Kareem Hunt got banged up in the red zone when he was on the field, and that led to Isaiah Pacheco seeing more usage. Now, if Kareem Hunt is going to miss 4+ weeks with a high ankle sprain, well then yeah, Pacheco looks good. But if it is a mild ankle, which they originally reported, maybe we have more news on that by the time you're watching this, then Isaiah Pacheco, if Kareem Hunt is going to be back next week, might lose some of that red zone role. And then you're looking at a game last week where instead of having that touchdown, it's just, even in a good matchup, 15 carries for 57 scoreless yards because Hunt would have probably been on the field in the red zone like he has been all year ahead of Pacheco. So my problem is I don't really believe this role just yet. And even if it's trending in the right direction, it's not like he's been super efficient this year, right? He's 43rd in yards per touch. He's averaging just 4.1 yards per carry, which is below the NFL average for starting running backs and even some backup running backs this year. So when I start to look at it, like, yeah, I'm not selling Isaiah Pacheco for nothing right now, but I saw a trade that happened this past weekend. Somebody traded in the Flock League Isaiah Pacheco. Basically, there's some other guys involved, but basically 1-for-1 for Kenneth Walker. I think that's a pretty fair and net neutral deal. Both of those guys have their flaws, their upsides, but if we're talking about trading across positions, here's some potential deals you could look at. Once again, I will be trying to trade for Quentin Johnson after he came off of a down game off the hamstring. I'd rather have him than Isaiah Pacheco. If we scroll down a little bit more, you can get some deals that are pretty similar, like a Deebo Samuel is a deal that's happened within the past 24 hours. That's one that looks pretty solid, especially if he's going to return this week, assuming Jaden Daniels doesn't miss more than 1 to 2 games. So there are some deals out here that, no doubt about it, rest of season, like Pacheco is somebody who's going to grade out somewhere around like a 6th round pick where he was kind of drafted because his role is trending up. But maybe, especially this weekend, if you can find him getting into the end zone, if you hold on to him this week, then you can try and sell even higher. He's somebody that I just don't trust the overall role with other running backs, even Brashard Smith, the rookie, being involved in this backfield. Next up, I want to talk about a tight end, Jake Ferguson, who for the most part this year has been fantastic. That continued in week 7, even with CeeDee Lamb back. He had a team high 7 catches. He scored multiple touchdowns, only 29 receiving yards. He wasn't used all that much downfield, which has been kind of his MO for most of the season. And now if we look at it, this season with CeeDee Lamb out for those 5 games, Jake Ferguson averaged 18 fantasy points per game. 9 targets per game, 56 receiving yards per game, a bunch of touchdowns. This 18.2 fantasy points per game was number 1 amongst all tight ends. Now, you look at his 2 games with CeeDee Lamb in this year, fully in week 1 and then week 7, it's still a solid 14.6 points per game, but this is heavily skewed by him finding the end zone twice last week. Again, Dak Prescott trusts him. He trusts him in the red zone. He trusts him in the short areas of the field. That is very valuable and important, but overall, I don't think rest of season Ferguson's going to be a top 3 tight end like he currently is right now. He's currently the number 1 tight end. You might be able to cash in on that in your league. Because at the end of the day, like, it's going to still be CeeDee Lamb as the clear one, George Pickens as, in my opinion, the clear two on this team, and then you get into the backfield being involved with Javonte Williams. Yes, this offense is going to throw a lot. Yes, Dak Prescott is top 3 in passing yards and pass attempts per game, but how much does that really leave for Jake Ferguson? More weeks than not, I think it's going to leave him being a touchdown or bust, which most tight ends are, but some people in your league might view Jake Ferguson as this set it and forget it clear tight end one, like a Trey McBride or when a Brock Bowers or Kittle are healthy, and I don't think he's anywhere near that. Because at the end of the day, he doesn't run those same type of routes. He doesn't produce after the catch like those elite tight ends do. I mean, he's literally averaging 3.9 average depth of target. That's 35th amongst all tight ends, borderline last amongst all qualified tight ends. Just for an example, this means on average, he's being targeted 4 yards down the field. That's like barely better, sometimes not even better than most running backs, which means for them, and he doesn't have yards after the catch ability like most elusive running backs do. So he's kind of just a catch it and fall down guy. That's why this past week he had 7 catches for 29 yards. Not a great average yards per reception. So Ferguson, by all accounts, when CeeDee Lamb was out, was great for the most part. Like the rest of the season, yeah, I think he's a top 10 tight end either way, but you might be able to trade him for more than that, like some of these trades right here. Bucky Irving, who's banged up, maybe he returns this week. Otherwise, it'll be after the bye. Give me Bucky Irving. Brock Bowers, who could return after their bye. They're saying and they're believing that he will be returning in week 9. That's somebody that I'd much rather have over Jake Ferguson. I'd rather have Quinn Johnson over Jake Ferguson. So many deals you can get done right now. Xavier Worthy, Tucker Kraft, Jaylen Warren, all these guys I'd rather have over Ferguson, especially with CeeDee Lamb back now. Now, before we get into this next wide receiver that you should try and trade off your team, because this quarterback situation is about to get pretty sketchy. If you want to see my #1 trade target at every single position for this week, so you can improve your team, win your matchup, and ultimately win your league, you can check it out completely free, link down below, or by heading to topfantasytrades.com. That is topfantasytrades.com. That will take you to this page where you just enter your email, and then a couple of minutes later, I will send it. It'll be in your inbox. If you don't see it in your inbox, it means it's either in your spam or promotional folders, especially if you have a Gmail account. Check those promotional folders, but either way, this will send you the #1 trade targets at each position, not just for this week, but then the rest of the year as well. All right, next up, I want to talk about Jordan Addison, and I have to be very clear on this because Jordan Addison, this video is releasing on Thursday morning, and Jordan Addison does play on Thursday night. So there's a decent chance you're watching this and Jordan Addison has already played. So maybe there's a world where he goes off, or maybe there's a world where he doesn't go off, or maybe he gets hurt. Knock on wood that he doesn't. We don't want any player injuries, but I'm just letting you know that because I don't have the context of what happens on Thursday night. This is being recorded before and released before Thursday night. But Jordan Addison has been playing great with Carson Wentz, and as of right now, Carson Wentz has been named the starter for Thursday Night Football. I mean, this past week, the last game he played in week 7, 9 catches, 128 yards. He looked like the best wide receiver out there, and that's saying something playing next to Justin Jefferson. And by the way, since the second half of last year, in the games that they're active together, Jordan Addison has been producing basically the exact same fantasy points per game, very similar to Jefferson in the games when they're both active and finishing games together. I mean, in fact, through 3 games together this year, here's their breakdown. Addison is averaging 14.4 fantasy points per game on 18 catches, and Jefferson is averaging 12.9 fantasy points per game on 22 catches. So Addison has been great, but here's the sketchy thing. Obviously, both of these quarterbacks are not awesome, although Carson Wentz has looked better in terms of fantasy for his wide receivers than J.J. McCarthy's 8 quarters of play in his 2 games. But J.J. McCarthy could be returning soon. He could be returning any week. They're saying that it's probably going to be happening after their Thursday Night Football game. They get the mini bye in week 9. That's a concern because Carson Wentz is averaging 36 pass attempts per game. He's had 268 yards per game compared to J.J. McCarthy in his 2 games. They're only trusting him to throw 20 times per game, only 150 yards per game. So you're getting nearly half the pass attempts, half the passing production. Of course, that's a small 2-game sample, but now he's even coming off of a high ankle sprain. Who knows how crisp he'll be? He already wasn't crisp before that for 7 out of 8 quarters of his first 2 NFL starts. Obviously, they drafted the guy in the first round. They're going to go back to him. They're going to give him more chances, but maybe that doesn't help Jordan Addison. Last week, Jordan Addison was a bye. That ended up working out. He got you a lot of points in week 7. Hopefully on Thursday night, by the time you're watching this, he got you a decent game again, but then that's the time to ship him as soon as you can. I mean, heck, you could even see it in the yardage totals. This week on Thursday night, despite it being a short week, not great for offenses and teams in general, Justin Jefferson is projected for 80 receiving yards with Carson Wentz in a not so easy matchup against the Chargers. When you look at that and you compare it to in week 2 with J.J. McCarthy, he was barely projected for 70 receiving yards, one of the lowest totals we've ever seen in Justin Jefferson's career. That means that Vegas is telling us, yeah, we don't really trust J.J. McCarthy, which makes sense. A rookie who didn't look good in his first 2 starts. So at the end of the day, Jordan Addison, although he's been producing really strongly this year, at some point, and it'll probably be in week 9, the rookie quarterback's going to come in, and I don't know if we're going to keep getting these 100-yard performances like Addison has been producing basically this year, where he's averaging nearly 100 yards per game. That's my concern right now with Jordan Addison. That's why if I could get a decent deal for him, like Rome Odunze 1 for one. This deal's happened in the last 24 hours. I even think Jaylen Warren, if you need running back help, is a fair deal. Mike Evans would have been a fair deal before injury, obviously not anymore, but I think those types of deals are the perfect ones you can have. I mean, even Marvin Harrison on his bye week this week, I think I'd rather have at that point, especially if we can see Jacoby Myers still starting or Jacoby Brissett still starting after the bye week for the Cardinals, though that seems unlikely. So these are the 6 players that you should try and trade away as soon as possible in your league. Now, if you want to see who you should trade them for, well, I released that video yesterday. You can check it out right here. These are 10 players that I think I would bet my house on the rest of the season. They're league winners, or actually there's 7 players. Sorry, I said 10. There's 7 players in this video that I think you want to trade for as soon as possible. That'll improve your team. The guys in this video, trade them away for the guys in that video. Simple as that.